At a number 10 spot, we have the ghost of Mr. Chu. Once upon a time in Dover's Green, Delaware, there was once a man named Samuel Chu who served as the chief justice in the town. Despite his position, the townspeople made fun of him for his name, pretending to sneeze whenever they saw him. You know, like, Chu? This constant teasing eventually took its toll on Samuel Chu after he passed away in 1743. It seemed that his death didn't bring him peace, as his ghost soon started haunting the town immediately. The first person to report an encounter with the ghost of Samuel Chu was farmer David Hendricks. He claimed that on a cold autumn night, the ghost appeared to him dressed in the judge's robe and white powdered wig. As the farmer was on his way to the tavern, the ghost chased after him, causing him to run home in terror. The story of the ghost quickly spread throughout the town, and soon after, residents reported sightings of this apparition as well. Over time, people in Dover became afraid to leave their homes after dark, and the once thriving taverns in the town started to empty out. The tavern owners became worried about their livelihood, and so one of them, Mistress Van Loon, called the town meeting to discuss a solution. She suggested that the ghost could be laid to rest by giving him a proper burial. The town agreed, and Samuel Chu's ghost was given a grand funeral in an ornate grave. Although the ghost was said to be satisfied with his new resting place, there was still tales of him roaming the streets and tormenting those who made fun of his name by sneezing when they hear it. Number 9. Fort Delaware. Fort Delaware, located on Pea Patch Island in the Delaware River, is a piece of American history that has been preserved to this day. The fort was first built in 1859 with the purpose of protecting the ports of Willingham and Philadelphia during the Spanish-American War. During the Civil War, it was also used as a prison camp for Confederate soldiers. The conditions at Fort Delaware were brutal, however, and many prisoners perished as a result, leading to reports of ghostly apparitions and strange occurrences that still persist to this day. With nearly 13,000 prisoners kept in wooden barracks, conditions at this fort were inhumane. Food rations were small and almost inedible, water was putrefied, and prisoners were subjected to torturous conditions, such as officers throwing rats in the crowds for their amusement. Scurvy, smallpox, and severe malnutrition were widespread. It is not surprising then that many of the 2,700 men who perished at the fort, as well as those who lived to be freed, continue to haunt the prison to this day. Visitors to the fort report a range of supernatural activities, ranging from being tapped on to feeling as if someone is breathing directly on them. So if you dare, you can actually take a 5-hour tour here for paranormal purposes only. Number 8. The Shelbyville Swamp Monster. The legend of the Shelbyville Swamp Monster has been known to the residents of Delaware since early 1960s. According to the tale, a grotesque creature dwells in the Great Cypress Swamp, terrorizing locals and visitors alike. However, the truth behind this legend is far more intriguing than the story itself. In 1987, it was revealed that the entire monster hoax was created by Ralph Grapperhaus, the editor of Delmarva News, and his friend Fred Stevens. Grapperhaus, who is known for his love of a good prank, Stevens, who was 26 at the time, dressed up in a costume made of his Aunt Dorothy's old raccoon hat, a mask, and a club, and then hid in the shallows of the woods. He would jump out at passing cars on Route 54, creating the illusion of a monster inside of the swamp. The news of the alleged monster sightings soon spread like wildfire, and a photo of the Shelbyville Swamp Monster even made the front page of the Delmarva News on April 23, 1964. Stevens even participated in the hunt to find this creature, adding fuel to the fire of the hoax. However, Stevens eventually stopped the charade out of fear for his safety. It wasn't until 23 years later that the truth behind the legend was finally revealed. Despite the revelation, residents continued to report sightings of the monster in the Great Cypress Swamp. Some people believe that the creature was not entirely a hoax and that a monster still may be roaming the foggy shadows of the swamp. In the 1920s, a couple of hunters reported hearing loud, inhumane screaming, followed by sounds of something large and heavy racing towards them. This has led some, including local author Andy Nunez, to question if there may be some truth to the legend after all. Number 7. Catman's Grave. The Long Cemetery, also known as Colonel Armwell Long Cemetery, is located at the end of an old dirt road in southeastern Delaware. It was established as a family plot for Colonel Armwell Long, who served in the Revolutionary War, and his family after his death in 1834. The land was later turned into a public cemetery in his memory, with Armwell being the first official burial. One of the most famous stories related to the cemetery is that of the Catman. The Catman was a former caretaker of the cemetery who lived in a nearby home and was known for chasing away any teenagers who came to the cemetery to cause any sort of trouble. After his death, the Catman was buried in an above-ground tomb in the cemetery, but even in death, he continued to watch over the cemetery and was still said to take care for it. However, the tomb was torn down in 1994 due to vandalism, and the Catman was given a regular in-ground burial. People who saw the tomb before it was torn down reported seeing strange scratches on the inside that were said to resemble those of a cat's claws. It is believed that if someone knocks on the wall of the cemetery 3 times, they will summon the Catman, who will cause a visitor's car to fail, making it difficult for them to leave. Despite no longer being the caretaker of the cemetery, the Catman is still said to have no patience for anyone messing around in his cemetery. Number 6. The Old Maggie's Bridge. Located on Woodland Church Road in Seaford or Woodland, Delaware, it is known for being one of the most haunted roads in the States. This is what it looks like in the daytime. Looks pretty normal. Well, you're wrong, cause this short bridge holds a dark and eerie history, as it is said that a young woman named Maggie Bloxam was decapitated in an accident on the bridge in the late 19th century. To add to the horror, her grave can be found in a local cemetery, with the cause of her death being listed as young and pregnant. Maggie's spirit is believed to still haunt the bridge, searching for her lost baby and possibly her head. According to local legend, if you visit the bridge at night, you should get out of your car and yell into the night, "Maggie, Maggie, I have your baby." People have reported seeing figures moving about the woods on either side of the bridge, and photographs often come back with orbs dancing in the dark, and it is said that the best time to visit the bridge is during a full moon, when Maggie can be seen in all of her ghostly glory. There are multiple accounts of cars acting strangely on the bridge, with engines failing to start, gears shifting out of place, or the car moving on its own after the engine has been turned off. These experiences has led regular paranormal investigations at the site, and many locals swear that Maggie's ghost is still very active and can be seen on the right nights. In the hump of our list, we have the Pukwudgie. The Pukwudgie is a mythical creature from Wampanoag folklore, originating from Delaware and Prince Edward Island. According to the legend, the Pukwudgies are a human-like creature that can appear and disappear at will, and they also have the ability to shapeshift, use magic, launch poison arrows, and create fire. They are known to cause trouble for those who annoy them and are considered to be hostile to humans. Native American folklore suggests that the Pukwudgies were once friendly to humans, but then turned against them out of jealousy towards the cultural heroes Michelle and Granny Squanit. Ever since, the Pukwudgies are said to have kidnapped, attacked, and blinded their victims, and now are labeled as dangerous creatures. They are known to have caused mischief and torment to the Native American community, and are said to have killed Maushop's 5 sons, while some variations suggest that they may have killed Maushop himself. Whether or not you think they are good or not, they are definitely a creature best to avoid. Number 4, the Zeewanhendiao mermaid. In the early 17th century, Dutch settlers attempted to establish a settlement named Zeewanhendiao in what is now Delaware, USA. Although the colony was short-lived and destroyed after a single year, it is now remembered as the first European settlement in the area. To commemorate the 300th anniversary of its founding, the Zeewanhendiao Museum was created, showcasing the history of southeastern Delaware. And this thing, yeah, I don't know about that. This is a supposed mummified mermaid that was given to the prominent Martin family by a sea captain and eventually lent to this museum. The mermaid, however, is not the beautiful mythical creature that one might expect. Instead, it has a simian face with large rigid eye sockets and a wide toothy mouth. Its hands are clawed like a reptile, and its torso is covered in bony ridges. The creature is small, less than a foot in length, and its skin and scales are ashy gray-black. But in reality, not to burst anyone's bubbles, the mermaid is a clever taxidermy specimen that bears a closer resemblance to a Fiji mermaid made classic by P.T. Barnum. This tradition of taxidermied monsters can be traced back to the Misemono, a type of carnival in Old Edo, which is modern-day Tokyo, where mummified mermaids and other supernatural creatures were displayed as carnival attractions. These creatures were believed to bring good luck and fortune to attendees, and were often constructed from the bodies of fish and small monkeys dressed with paper mache, wood, and lacquer. Over time, these fake mermaids or ningyo made their way overseas and became popular curiosities for sailors from America and Europe, where the folklore behind the creature was lost, leaving a blank canvas for new mythologies to be written. Number 3, the Addie C Inn. The Addie C Inn in Bethany Beach, Delaware is a charming Victorian-style bed and breakfast that was built by the Addie family in 1902. This historic establishment is also known for being one of the most haunted places in the state of Delaware. One of the most famous hauntings at the Addie C Inn is that of a copper bathtub in room 1 that vibrates mysteriously. Guests have reported experiencing the tub shaking violently, and the story of the shaking tub has become one of the most well-known tales associated with the inn. There are also reports of eerie organ music heard coming from room 6, despite no organ being present in the room. Guests have reported the ghostly apparition of someone running through the hallways at night, accompanied by the smells of perfume and the sounds of mysterious music. Room 11 is believed to be haunted by Paul Dulaney, a former handyman who worked for the Addie family, while Curtis Addie's ghost is said to roam the roof of the inn, restless after falling to his death from the roof many years prior. Number 2, the Governor's Mansion. The Governor's Mansion, also known as Woodburn, is a grand and historic building in Dover, Delaware. This stately abode was constructed in the late 1700s by Charles Hilliard III and has served as the official residence of Delaware's governors for many years. But there's more to the story of Woodburn than just its impressive exterior. For generations, people have whispered about the ghostly happenings that seem to occur within its walls. The first recorded instance of paranormal activity dates back to just 25 years after the house was built, when Charles Hilliard III passed away. According to the legend, the owners of the mansion at the time invited a Methodist preacher to stay with them. During a morning prayer session, the preacher requested they wait for the other guests who was staying in the guest house. The couple claimed that there was no one else visiting, but the preacher went on to describe his ghostly roommates in vivid detail, matching Charles Hilliard III's appearance exactly. Since then, many have reported strange and unusual occurrences within the mansion's walls. Some say that the ghost of Charles Hilliard himself still roams inside of this building, and that if you leave a glass of wine on the stairs for him, you'll find it drained by the morning. Other ghostly sightings included the screams of a slave who was caught and killed near the mansion's porch while running from slave hunters, and the ghostly figure of a young girl dressed in a gingham dress and bonnet carrying a candle and roaming the grounds. Whether you're a paranormal enthusiast or simply a lover of all things historical, the Governor's Mansion is definitely worth a visit. Number 1, the Dead President's Hub. The Dead President's Hub and Restaurant in Willingham, Delaware is a popular gathering spot with a rich and spooky history. The pub is located in a historical part of the city and is known for its presidential memorabilia and paranormal activity. Despite being in business only since the late 1990s, the two-story space has a long and varied history, having served as a private residency and several other businesses, including bars, over the years. Visitors of the pub claim to feel a dark and heavy presence, with strange occurrences such as glass rattling on their own and rooms becoming extremely cold all of a sudden. Late at night, employees have reported hearing childlike giggles and witnessing dishes flying across the room. One ghostly figure that is rumored to visit the pub regularly is Lemonade Mullery, who is said to have died from a fall in the bathroom in the 1960s. Several paranormal investigation teams have been drawn to the pub to study the ghostly activity, and they all agree that the place is teeming with entities that feel like they're part of the staff. At a number 10 spot, we have the Chislehurst Caves. This large cave in England spans 22 miles of passageways split into 3 distinct sections named Saxon, Druid, and Roman. They all branch out and then end up linking one another soon after. In World War II, many British civilians would use this cave to hide from the bombings, but these caves date way further back than that, because they date all the way in 1250, where there are written reports of mining in these caves. Throughout history, the cave was also used as a cemetery to keep the dead, which is why many people believe it is haunted. People regularly report hearing screams, murmurs, children giggling, and footsteps echoing from deep within the cave. Locals even claim that the reports are from the spirits who passed away in the cave, trying to let the living know of the eternal suffering. At a number 9 spot, we have London fog. On December 4th in 1952, smog began to cover all of London. London. The smog was present for 5 whole days and ended up leading to the passing of at least 4,000 people. On a regular Thursday afternoon, a high-pressure air mass stalled over the Thames River Valley. Suddenly, cold air came in from the west side and the air in London became trapped. The problem worsened by the low temperatures, which caused people living there to burn extra coal in their furnaces to keep warm. The smoke, soot, and sulfur dioxide from the area's industries, along with the stuff from the cars and consumer energy usage, caused heavy smog to smother the whole entire city. By the morning of December 5th, it was visible across hundreds of square miles. It became so thick and dense that by December 7th, there was no sunlight and visibility was only down to 5 yards in many places. Eventually, all transportation came to a halt, but not before the smog caused several train accidents, including a collision between 2 trains near the London Bridge. However, that wasn't the worst thing. The worst effect of the smog was the respiratory distress it caused in humans and animals, including difficulty breathing and a lot of people vomiting. A high number of people in the area, numbering all the way in the thousands, passed away in their sleep that weekend. Now, it's a little crazy to me that all this happened and so many people ended up losing their lives. Hopefully we can learn from this. At number 8 spot, we have Maternity Hospital. This building was constructed at the end of the 18th century on the territory of the hospital for participants in the Patriotic War of 1812 against the French army of Napoleon, and initially it was a general district hospital. It became a maternity hospital in the second half of the 20th century and was closed for reconstruction in 2009. The plan of this 2-story building resembles this Russian letter. The ceilings are more than 5 meters high, and in spite of the fact that the building is totally abandoned, it still has central heating and is rather clean. Vloggers and people passionate about abandoned sites visit it on a regular daily basis. The hospital is situated in the region of Vladimir, which is 186 kilometers to the east of Moscow. At number 7 spot, we have the Knights Templar curse. The Knight Templar was a Christian military order with the purpose to protect pilgrims in the Holy Land during the Crusade period. They had the power and the money. Philip IV from France sought to seize their wealth and power. So in a raid, Grand Master of the Templars, Jacques de Molay, was arrested along with his Templar comrades, being charged with heresy. Soon after, King Philip pressured Pope Clement V and made him agree to the reasoning. The Pope would issue a bill that made all Christian kings able to seize Templar property, which destroyed the Templar order, and Jacques de Molay was sentenced to death. Jacques, while burning on the stake, said, quote, "France will remember our last moments. We die innocent. And you, O Philip, my king, I pardon you. But my forgiveness is in vain, for your life is condemned at the tribunal of God. Within a year I shall await you also." Only 3 days later, Pope Clement would die in agony, and when he was cremated, the fire burned down the church as well. Then Philip IV died at the end of the year and died in great misery and in great pain. At number 6 spot, we have Scylla. This is a monster feared for her brutality. Scylla is a very interesting ocean creature in Greek mythology. She is usually beside the great whirlpool Cerberus and is a huge danger to those who wish to pass her waters. Out of all creatures in Greek mythology, her destruction ranks the highest, no questions asked. But she wasn't always this horrendous monster. In one depiction, she was a beautiful maiden and the fisherman turned god of the sea, Glaucus, fell in love with her. She wasn't interested at all because of his fishy tail, so he turned to Circe to ask for a potion to change her mind. However, Circe loved him and tried to convince him to forget about Scylla. Not wanting to punish the man she loved, Circe decided Scylla would suffer for her humiliation. Scylla was then transformed into a monster which had 6 serpentine-like heads, as well as the sounds of hounds spouting from her sides. There is no point in trying to escape her, cause you just can't. She is too powerful. All people who try to pass her are warned, quote, "Sail past, do not engage in a fight, as you will simply not win." In the hump of our list, we have real werewolves. You might think of werewolf stories as something only told for fun around the campfire, but that wasn't always the case. People truly believed in the existence of these creatures. In fact, in the 16th and 17th century in Europe, werewolf trials accompanied witch trials. It's even more surprising to note that the amount of people who confessed to being werewolves. Some were likely tortured into confession, but others believed that they were actually real werewolves. The idea that a human could transform into an animal was quite popular, and people thought they could make a deal with the devil in order to gain that power. In the 1500s, a French tailor was convicted of luring in, torturing, and slaying his victims before cooking and having them for dinner. He was also accused of turning into a werewolf to terrorize a town at night. Although there are no exact victim count, he was believed to have taken dozens of lives. The tailor made no attempt to defend himself. Instead, he cursed until his last breath, which he burned at the stake. mistake. The court was apparently so shocked by his evil acts that the court burned the documents as well. At number 4 spot, we have the Chernobyl black bird. Just a few days before the infamous Chernobyl nuclear plant disaster, many workers at the plant reported seeing a large, dark, and mutated man with gigantic wings. This humanoid creature was given the name Black Bird of Chernobyl, and despite the fact that it had no head, it had piercing red eyes who would send chills to the spines of anyone caught looking at it. Before the disaster, workers claimed to have been plagued by terrifying dreams and many instances of bad luck. Fast forward to the day of the disaster, and now workers have reported seeing the large black bird-like creature with a 40-foot wingspan flying through the smoke of Chernobyl. Many people believe these creatures to be a bad omen since they are shown around history to appear before tragic events. Now this creature is nowhere to be found in the area, which makes me wonder what was truly haunting them at the famous nuclear plant. At number 3 spot, we have sirens. Originating from Greek mythology, sirens are creatures with enchanting musical voices that lure sailors and unsuspecting people to their doom. They were in fact the daughters of the river god Achilles and a muse. Sometimes they're depicted as something similar to mermaids, but in more classical depictions they had wings. The wings were given to them by Zeus's daughter Persephone after Hades kidnapped her and took her to the underworld. She gave the sirens wings to help locate her, but in the oceans the sirens would sing a song so beautiful that it would lure any kind of man to jump off the boat and swim until the sirens would just pull them down under and drown them. Number 2 spot, we have the Nuckelavee. The Nuckelavee is a creature from the Orkney Islands and is considered a Scottish monster of Scandinavian and Celtic mythology. The Nuckelavee enjoys inflicting pain, tainting crops, and driving people from their homes. It appears as a horse with the torso of a man upon his back, standing 9 feet tall with long drapey arms attached to the rider, and it looks as though it had been skinned alive with only the muscles exposed. It was known as the creature of the sea that had come onto land just to wreak havoc. Its breath alone caused crops to wilt and even sicken cattle with diseases. At a number 1 spot, we have the Caves of Death. I mean, the name says it all. But if you happen to be in Scotland and you want to try something daring, then try out the Caves of Death. Archaeologists discovered this not too long ago and found that this was an ancient location used for human sacrifice, execution, and body disposal. Radiocarbon dating found mass of dismembered body parts, including children's heads left on poles in front of the cave's entrance, which were left there over 3,000 years ago. It's said they did this because they treated this place as a shrine where they would leave those who passed away, wait for them to decompose, and then collect the bones. At number 10 spot, we have the Warren Occult Museum. The Warren Occult Museum is a museum located in Monroe, Connecticut. It was founded by paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. You know, the ones from Conjuring? Yeah. It was dedicated for preserving and displaying artifacts related to the supernatural and the occult. As we see in the films, this place has objects ranging from cursed witch voodoo to innocent looking toys with murderous histories. Rightfully so, the Warren Occult Museum is known for its association with its own hauntings. For example, at many different times, the guests and even the Warrens believed that it was haunted by the ghost of the objects it contained, no matter how much preparation was made to prevent it from happening. Other visitors claim that the museum is actually haunted by the ghost of Ed Warren himself. The legend says that the ghost of Ed Warren can be seen in the museum and that his presence can be felt by those who enter. Other notable objects in this museum include Annabelle the doll, the Devil Made Me Do It dinosaur toy. At a number 9 spot, we have the Witch of Wooster Square. The Witch of Wooster Square is a ghostly figure that is said to haunt the streets of New Haven. The legend of the Witch of Wooster Square is thought to have originated in the early 1800s when New Haven was a bustling city and Wooster Square was a popular gathering place. At the time, the square was home to many shops, taverns, and other small businesses. However, this was still a time when the witch hysteria was ongoing, so it didn't take long until all the townsfolk accused one lady of being a full-fledged witch. The lady was said to be a very beautiful but also a very mysterious and reclusive person, which just gave more reason to believe that she was hiding something and therefore a witch at the time. Over time, people started to fear her as locals claimed the lady would cast spells and curses on those who crossed her. The legend of the Witch of Wooster Square grew, and people began to claim that they had seen the ghostly figure of a woman on the streets of the square. Some claimed to have seen her floating through the air, but regardless, visitors claim to feel a different type of energy when they're here at this place. At our number 8 spot, we have the Green Lady. The Green Lady is a popular story in Connecticut. According to the legend, the Green Lady was a woman who lived in a mansion in the woods outside of a small town in Connecticut. She was known for her beauty and her love of nature, and she would often be seen walking through the woods wearing a long flowing green dress. However, one day, the Green Lady disappeared without a trace. It is said that her ghost now haunts these woods, still wearing her green dress and looking for her lost love. Some people claim to have seen her standing amongst the trees with a sad and wistful expression on her face. Others have reported hearing her mournful cries in the night. Despite the creepy nature of this story, many people are drawn to the legend of the Green Lady and continue to search for her ghost in the woods of Connecticut. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the story of this is a chilling reminder of the mysteries that lurk in the depths of the forest. At a number 7 spot, with the New London Ledge Lighthouse. The New London Ledge Lighthouse is a historic lighthouse located in New London, Connecticut. It was situated on a small island at the entrance to the harbor and has been in operation since 1909. There are several scary stories associated with this lighthouse. One of the most famous is the story of a former lighthouse keeper named Captain Richard Phillips. According to the legend, Captain Phillips was a gruff and stern man who was not well liked by the other lighthouse keepers. One night, while he was on duty at the lighthouse, Captain Phillips had a heart attack and passed away. Since his death, many people have reported seeing his ghost still at the lighthouse. Some say that he is seen walking the halls, still carrying out his duties as the lighthouse keeper. Others have reported hearing strange noises and seeing strange lights coming from the lighthouse at night. Despite his ghost, the New London Ledge Lighthouse will always remain a popular tourist attraction and a beloved symbol of New England's maritime history. At our number 6 spot, with the White Lady of Union Cemetery. The White Lady is a ghostly woman who is sent to haunt the Union Cemetery in Easton. According to the legend, the White Lady was a young woman who was tragically killed in a car accident near this cemetery. Ever since, her ghost is said to still be here, appearing as a white-clad figure floating among the graves. Many people have reported seeing the White Lady at this cemetery, and that her ghost is said to be particularly active on foggy nights. Some say that if you see this White Lady, it means someone you know will pass away soon. So best keep your eyes closed if you come here. Others claim that she is a benevolent spirit who brings good luck to those who see her. Over the time, the legend of the White Lady grew, and people began wondering if she was either good or if she was bad. But one thing was for sure, when you come to this cemetery, chances are you'll probably catch a glimpse of her spirit. In the hump of our list, we have the Litchfield Hills. The Litchfield Hills is a scenic region in northwestern Connecticut, known for its rolling hills and charming small towns. Locals claim that Litchfield Hills is actually haunted by the ghost of a woman named Elizabeth. According to the legend, Elizabeth was a woman who lived in Litchfield Hills in the 1800s. After she saw the passing of her children, she was so overcome with grief and despair that she turned to the dark arts to seek revenge on those who wronged her in life. Filled with extreme rage, she ran to these fields and stayed here until she passed away, murdering everyone who walked by. They say that she could still be seen wandering the hills, but as a ghost form, and that her presence can be felt by any of those who encounter her. As well, there's a farmhouse nestled away here that was built in 1790. This house seemed to be a spot for many different paranormal occurrences that even Ed and Lorraine Warren investigated and dubbed it the Ghost Central. At a number 4 spot, with the Norwich State Hospital. The Norwich State Hospital was a psychiatric hospital located in Norwich, Connecticut. It was in operation from 1904 to 1996, known for its overcrowding, inadequate staffing, and poor conditions, which included reports of physical and essay of patients. During its time of being active, workers and patients claimed to see the ghosts from inside of these walls, and to this day, people believe these spirits are still here. They are said to be the spirits of the patients who passed away here after being left untreated and not taken care of. They also say sections of the hospital are haunted by the ghost of a nurse who was murdered there by a former patient. As mentioned, the hospital has closed down and many of the buildings were demolished, but the site still holds a reputation for being haunted and is still considered a popular location for ghost hunters, at least around the ruined grounds. Number 3, Devil's Footsteps. The Devil's Footsteps are a mysterious set of footprints that appear and disappear without any explanation in the woods of Danbury. The legend of the Devil's Footsteps is thought to have originated in the 1800s when the woods of Danbury were home to many settlers and farmers. At the time, it was said that a man named John Rugg was walking through the woods when he heard a strange otherworldly voice calling out his name. When he turned to look, he saw a pair of footprints in the snow that were not his own. Over time, the legend of the devil's footprints grew, and people began to claim that they seen these mysterious footprints in the woods following behind them. Some said that the footprints would appear and disappear without any explanation, while others claimed that they would hear the voice of the devil calling out their name, and ever since, this has been a mystery. Number 2, Chasing Youth. The Chasing Youth is a spirit that is said to haunt the old Mark Twain house in Hartford. The legend of the Chasing Youth is thought to have originated in the late 1800s when the Mark Twain house was home to the famous writer and his family. At the time, it was said that Twain's wife, Olivia, was plagued by a strange illness that caused her to lose her youth and beauty. In her desperation to regain her youth, it is said that Olivia turned to the dark arts and summoned a spirit known as the Chasing Youth. Over time, the legend of the Chasing Youth grew. Eventually, more and more people would begin seeing this Chasing Youth creature. Some have said they can still hear the sounds of footsteps and other strange noises inside of this house, and they could also feel the presence of the Chasing Youth even when they couldn't even see her. At number 1 spot, we have Union Cemetery. Union Cemetery is a historic cemetery located in Easton, Connecticut. The cemetery was established in 1740 and is the final resting place for many of the town's early settlers and notable residents. It is known for its beautiful grounds, historic headstones, and its association with several legends and other ghost stories. One such legend is that of the cemetery is haunted by the ghost of a woman known as the White Lady. Although there are many different variations of this story, here's another one. According to some, the White Lady is a ghostly figure that can be seen walking the cemetery at night, and she is often associated with a particular grave in the cemetery. Another legend associated with this place is that it's haunted by a man who was wrongfully accused and executed for murder. The legend says that the man's ghost can be seen in the cemetery and that his presence can be felt by those who enter, and some visitors claim that they've walked up to him and they've seen him talk, saying that he's asking them for forgiveness. At a number 10 spot, we have the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it is a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as the Sukinbutsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and these are the bodies of the priests who belong to the Shingon sect of the Japanese Buddhism. All the mummies we see are priests who made the drastic decision to self-mummification. Just something about a body that is fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy. The process for mummification would actually be pretty intense. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then in the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diet to a bare minimum. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment, basically meaning that they would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation in order to reach enlightenment. At a number 9 spot, we have a devil sighting. Somewhere in Asia during the night, a driver encountered one of the creepiest looking people on the road. It's hard to explain, so it's best to see what I'm talking about. In the video, we see a young woman with long dark hair sitting in the middle of the road. As she notices the camera, she starts to walk backwards towards the car and then begins to pick up her pace. This is when the car is like, yup, no, I'm out of here. Many claim that what you see in the video is in fact a real devil, while others claim it's a deliberate prank. But who goes this far for a prank? Like, really? At number 8 spot, we have the Casablanca Tunnel. This is considered to be Indonesia's most haunted tunnel. It is located in the Basuki Rahmat Street near Kuningan area, and although there is nothing documented about this bridge, it is believed to be built sometime in the 1980s. The tunnel's location used to be a graveyard, so during construction, they planned to relocate it, but did so improperly. So you kind of see where this goes. It's said that this caused many of the spirits to come out of their eternal rest. Although other tunnels have their own fair share of accidents, the ones that happen in the Casablanca tunnel are quite different. Drivers who were caught in accidents all claim seeing a woman walking across the street, causing them to crash in the first place. The woman is known as the Red Robe Lady, and as the name suggests, she would be seen walking the tunnel in her red robe. It is said that this is the ghost of a woman whose grave was disturbed and has been there ever since. At a number 7 spot, we have the paranormal taxi. When a taxi driver in Japan was dropping off their passenger, their dash cam captures something paranormal. To the driver, the car ride was completely normal, but to us, we can see the dashcam footage, there was nothing normal about it. He is seen driving under a bridge when what it looks like a ghost appears in the backseat of the car. The figure seems to linger around for a while at one point having what looks like a smile on its face. Then suddenly, after a bit, the figure just vanishes.
タイヤトンネル入り込んでる。
Now, some say that it's a reflection of the lights in the tunnel, but I don't really know how much I believe that, and not to mention how the figure just disappears for a bit, then come back when the driver is no longer in the tunnel. At a number 6 spot, we have the Devil's Bend at Old Upper Thompson Road. The creepy road is said to be haunted by the spirits of drivers who unfortunately passed away while trying to navigate this tricky road bend. The story goes that it is part of the race route of the original Singapore Grand Prix, which was held from 1961 to 1974 until it was discontinued due to its high fatality rate. The poorly lit stretch is still a favorite haunt for illegal street racers and thrill seekers. The most recent accident claimed the lives of 2 passengers when the car they were traveling in plunged into a ditch in 2008. Now, it's not really hard to get here because it's just a road, so you're more than welcome to drive here. Right in the hump of our list, we have Khao Lak. Khao Lak is a beautiful seaside town in Phang Nga province. In 2004, it was all but destroyed by a devastating tsunami. While many places in several countries suffered fatalities and damage after the huge earthquake in the Indian Ocean, Khao Lak saw Thailand's greatest loss of life. It is estimated that at least 4,000 people perished on December 26, 2004. The resort has risen from the debris, with homes, hotels, and businesses gradually being rebuilt and repaired. Many Thai people believe that the coastal region is haunted by the tsunami's victims, and guests have reported strange occurrences in many local hotels. Others have even reported that human hands have tried to grab them while they're swimming near the coastlines where this tragedy struck. So maybe not the best place to go for vacation. I don't know. At number 4 spot, we have the Bayoki Sky Hotel. Located in what was once the tallest building in Bangkok, the Bayoki Sky Hotel is one of the highest hotels in Southeast Asia. It towers over much of the city at 88 stories tall. However, in 2012, there was a tragic accident during the construction of the tower, whereby 3 workers plummeted to their deaths. Perhaps enraged by unsafe equipment and working practices, the souls are now said to haunt the high-class hotel. Guests and staff members alike have reported a variety of strange happenings. These include mysteriously moving objects and even creepy shadows in the darkness. Even websites like TripAdvisor and Google reviews talk about many of the supernatural encounters they've had in the hotel. These reviews suggest that the ghosts report poltergeist activity, which includes having their items moved around the room aggressively, shadow figures in the dark corners of the rooms, and having the feeling of being watched and not alone. I know it doesn't make sense financially, but I feel like they should just close down a hotel after more than a few deaths have occurred there, because I swear every hotel is haunted because of that nowadays. At number 3 spot, we have the Jingxi. Also known as the Chinese hopping vampire, the Jingxi comes from a phrase meaning stiff corpse. They are psychic vampire zombies. Yes, you heard that right. Who feeds off a person's chi rather than their blood. And for those who don't know, chi is considered to be a person's life force, which means that it's the energy that flows through and your entire body, basically giving you life in a sense. So unlike the vampires we have over here, the Jingxi prefers not to consume humans or our blood, and they also aren't able to walk, so they're seen hopping around with their hands out front to maintain their balance. Many believe these creatures are created following a violent death, an improper burial, use of supernatural powers, or you just got bit by another vampire. Don't get it confused, this is the horror hybrid of the century. At number 2 spot, we have Mount Osori. This is one of Japan's most sacred sites, and for a good reason. It's claimed by many to be one of the entrances to hell. First, the temple lies on top of a volcanic plain, and as you roam the area, you will constantly pick up the scent of sulfur, which is already eerie because this is the smell of ghosts and devils supposedly. But volcanic reasons also make sense. According to Buddhist monks, they say this place resembles the description of hell and also paradise, so this is why they believe this is the spirit hub. Around the area are also these little Jizo statues. These were used to guide people who were lost, especially for children to keep and take with them for safety. Parents who have lost their children bring pebbles to the site as an offering for their kids to easily go through the afterlife. Except many of the pebbles left are often left broken, and many have placed the blame on evil demons in the area. They even have a festival at the shrine where blind women named Itaku bring messages from the afterlife back to the living. So best believe there are quite a few spirits here waiting to communicate with. At a number 1 spot, we have the Tugu complex. In the city of Malang are 3 schools who were in deep connection with the horrors committed in World War II. Back in 1940s, these 3 schools were used as concentration camps by the opposing Japanese soldiers. The Japanese created an underground system of crawl spaces and secret rooms that connect each school along with the local train station and governor's office. This would ensure accessibility everywhere. Legends say that these 2 teenagers attempted to explore these tunnels and secret passageways, but after a short time, one student came back screaming while the other student was found weeks later in the train station in a trance-like state, and he was unable to speak about the horrors he saw. Many believe he saw the ghosts of those who lost their lives in World War II. Another occurrence is the blood stains on the floor tiles in each building. And the odd thing is, workers say that removing these stains are nearly impossible, and some would even fall ill after trying to complete the job. Coming in at a number 10 spot, we have the elevator game. The elevator game is a mysterious and potentially dangerous ritual that is said to bring you to another world. This game has its origins in Japan and is played by entering an elevator in a public building with at least 10 floors. The player must press specific buttons in a specific order without anyone entering or even leaving the elevator in order to reach this other world. In the other world, electronics do not work, the lights are off, and all that can be seen from the windows is a red cross in the distance. To return back to the original world, the players must repeat the sequence of button presses and be very vigilant of their surroundings. The player must be careful not to look at the woman who enters the elevator on the 5th floor, as she is not human. If someone enters or even leaves the elevator during the ritual, the players must start over. And you must be wondering what the specific ritual is, but if you guys actually want to know about that, search it up, because I'm not going to say it for you guys because I don't want you guys doing this. Because for those who have played, it is said that if they faint or lose consciousness during the ritual, they may wake up in their own home. But they must be careful to examine their surroundings, as it may not be the same home they left. It is important to not attempt this ritual too many times as well, as it can lead to an accidental slipping between both worlds. And it's also worth mentioning that if the woman does not enter the elevator or the players do not reach the 10th floor, they should immediately return to the 1st floor and completely end the game. At a number 9 spot, we have the Rokurokubi, the long-necked demon. The legend of the Rokurokubi is a supernatural creature from Japanese mythology that originated during the Edo period, which is 1603 to 1867. The Rokurokubi is a beautiful woman by day, but at night she undergoes a metamorphosis where her neck extends and she begins to hunt. Some versions of this legend says that this creature can be recognized by small white marks on their neck, or even by the way they sleep with their head far from their body. But in reality, when I see photos of this, all I can think is, if they got a long neck, they're probably this creature. According to folklore, however, there are different explanations for the origin of this creature. Some believe they were once Buddhists who broke the religion's principles and were then cursed as punishment, while other people see the transformation as a supernatural expression of the person's desires. There are also legends that suggest they are Oni, which are these Japanese demons seeking revenge or even simply just playing tricks on humans. And it's also worth mentioning that this creature comes in many different forms, with female ones attacking men and male ones attacking women. The Nukekubi is one of the most dangerous forms, however, known for its detached head that just flies around and attacks its prey. At a number 8 spot, we have Hitobashira. Hitobashira, also known as human pillars, is a custom of human sacrifice that was once practiced in Japan. It involved burying a victim alive under or near large-scale buildings such as dams, bridges, and castles. The practice was believed to appease the gods and protect the structure from natural disasters and enemy attacks. The tradition of human sacrifice in Japan dates back to the construction of aristocratic tombs in ancient times. The use of human pillars persisted in various parts of Japan until the 16th century. Legend has it that the Maruoka Castle, one of the oldest surviving castles in Japan, was built with the help of a human pillar named Oshizu. When the stone wall of the castle kept collapsing, a vassal suggested the use of a human sacrifice, Oshizu, who is this one-eyed woman living in poverty who volunteered to even become this human pillar in the first place. But she did this under one condition, and that one condition being that one of her sons was turned into a samurai. She was buried under the central pillar of the castle keep, and the construction was successfully completed. However, her son was not made a samurai, and thus her spirit has caused moat to overflow with spring rain every single year, and some people even report to see her ghost when they enter and visit this castle. As a result, people erected a small tomb to soothe her spirit, and a poem was even handed down about the rain caused by the tears of Ushizu's sorrow. It is speculated that the instability of the walls of the Maruoka castle was due to the design of the castle in the first place, which is more indicative of earlier fortresses. On the other hand, the Matsu castle is also rumored to have been constructed on human sacrifice, buried under the castle stone walls. The victim was a beautiful young maiden who was fond of dancing and is referred to as the Maiden of the Matsu. After the castle was built, a law was passed forbidding any girl to dance in the streets of Matsu because the hill Oshiruyama would shudder and the castle would shake from top to bottom. Although this practice has not been continued, it's just crazy to think that this was actually done, and some of the pillars in Japan actually contain real human sacrifice. At our number 7 spot, we have the Kisaragi Station. In 2004, a 2chan user named Hasumi posted on a thread asking for help because she got on the wrong train at Shin Hamatsu Station. This was rather strange because she usually caught the same train after work, and trains in the station only go in one direction. She started getting really anxious because she remembered the stops only being a few minutes between each station, but on this specific train ride, they were just much longer. They even went through a tunnel, but her usual line didn't go through any sort of tunnel. She walked to the front car to ask the conductor for help, but the curtain was closed and no one answered. She then knocked on the door, but that's when the train suddenly stopped at Kisaragi Station. As she left the train, she was filled with huge anxiety and fear, but as she tried to go back, the train door shut on her. As all this was happening, she was messaging people on this discussion board on 4chan about the station, but when they all replied, they had said that no such station existed in Japan. She decided to exit the station and walk back along the tracks, even back through the tunnel she had gone through under earlier. She reported strange sounds like drums in the distance, and even a voice telling her that walking on the tracks is extremely dangerous. As she grew more afraid, she turned back to go around, but she saw an old man with one leg, which then slowly disappeared right after. When she finally got out of the tunnel, a man came up offering help and to drive her to the nearest station. This is when she posted on the thread for the very last time, saying that the man was muttering to himself, then her phone died, and she was never heard from the thread again. At our number 6 spot, we have the 1932 Shirokiya department store. On December 16, 1932, tragedy struck the Shirokiya department store in Japan during their year-end Christmas theme sale. The festive decorations of the season turned into a nightmare as a fire broke out at the toy section just a few minutes before the store was about to open. The fire quickly spread to floors 4 and 8, filling the staircase with smoke and cutting off major escape routes. This left many shoppers and employees stranded on the upper floors, desperate for a way to find safety. Some of those who were trapped made makeshift ropes from clothing or curtains and climbed down to safety. Others were not so lucky. They instead fell to their deaths or even suffocated in the smoke-filled building. In total, 14 people lost their lives and 67 were injured in the Shirokiya department store fire. In the aftermath of the fire, stories and legends began to circulate about the tragedy. One particularly interesting legend relates to the traditional dress of the saleswoman in the store. At the time, it was customary for women who wore traditional kimonos to go without panties. According to this urban legend, some of the saleswomen in kimonos who were trapped on the upper floors chose not to jump the safety nets that had been set up below because they were just ashamed to not be seen below without underwear. While there is no real proof that this legend actually existed, it is said to have led on to an increase in the popularity of Western style panties in Japan, which is both odd and kind of terrifying at the same time. I don't know what to think. In the hub for our list, we have the ghost taxi passengers. After the devastating 3/11 earthquake and tsunami that hit the northeastern Japan coast, sightings of yurei or ghosts have increased drastically in cities like Ishinomaki in Miyagi Prefecture. As these spirits have not been properly put to rest, some may have not even been aware that they are dead and are often searching for a way home. As a result, taxi drivers all over this place have long been subject to ghostly encounters in the form of passengers trying to go home or to a very specific place. This has almost become a norm for taxi drivers around Japan to be asked if they had ever had a ghostly passenger before. Tohoku Gaon University conducted a study called the Awakened Spiritual Earthquake Studies that involve interviews with more than 100 Ishinomaki taxi drivers who had supernatural encounters. Many drivers reported picking up passengers who seemed to be wet or wearing winter coats in the summer, months after the disaster in the cold months of March. Most drivers reported running the meter and having to pay the fee for the vanished passenger. One particular driver reported a chilling story about a man in winter clothing whom he picked up in the summer who asked to be taken to an address that had been destroyed. The driver asked if he was sure that was the address, as it was just a vacant lot, to which the passenger replied by asking, "Am I dead?" Number 4, the Red Room Curse. The Red Room Curse is a Japanese urban legend that originated from an interactive Adobe Flash horror animation uploaded to GeoCities in the late 1990s. The legend tells the story of a pop-up ad that appears on the victim's computer screen, displaying a black text that reads, "Do you like?" on a red background. After trying to close the pop-up, it reappears with a new message that reads, "Do you like the Red Room?" before the screen just turns completely red, displaying a list of names of the Red Room victims. This is when the victim senses a mysterious presence behind them before losing consciousness and later being found dead in a room with blood-painted walls. The legend gained notoriety in 2004 when a 12-year-old schoolgirl was murdered by an 11-year-old classmate known as Girl A in Sasebo. It was reported that Girl A was a fan of the Red Room Curse animation and had the video bookmarked on her computer at the time of her death. And of course, this incident led to widespread discussion and fear for this curse. Then in 2016, a short film titled The Red Room Curse was released and was inspired by this urban legend, of course. The film brings the legend to life and is sure to give anyone who watches it a chilling experience. So if you guys kind of want to know what this Red Room is about, watch this film because it'll give you all the insights. Number 3, the Ushi Oni. The world of Japanese mythology is full of terrifying creatures, but none are quite as fearsome as the Ushi Oni, also known as the Ox Demon. This class of monster is found near bodies of water and is known for its savage and cruel nature. Although there are different types of Ushi Oni, they all share similar traits that make them unmistakable. Perhaps the most terrifying thing about these monsters is their insatiable appetite for human flesh. Then on top of that, they breathe toxic poison, making them even more deadly. The Ushi Oni is not to be trifled with as well, and many people who have encountered one have not lived to tell the tale. It is worth mentioning that the Ushi Oni is not always a solitary creature either. They are known to work together with other yokai or supernatural creatures such as the Nura Onna and the Iso Onna. These yokai use their charms to lure unsuspecting men towards the water, where the Ushi Oni is waiting to pounce and make a meal of its victims. The appearance of the Ushi Oni is quite unique and interesting as well. Much of them resemble an ox from the head up, but their body is a demonic horror. However, there are many variations on this theme, including one with a spider-like body, another one with a cat-like body, and even one with the body of a kimono-clad human. Pretty terrifying. Number 2, the cursed Kleenex commercial. In 1986, Kleenex released a commercial in Japan that sparked a series of disturbing urban legends. The ad featured a woman in white and an ogre-looking child sitting on a pile of hay and enjoying Kleenex tissues, all while singing the song "It's a Fine Day" by Jane and Barden played in the background. Almost instantly after the commercial was aired, TV stations and Kleenex corporate allegedly began receiving complaints about the ad, with many people finding it unsettling. Some claim that the entire film crew met untimely deaths in freak accidents following this, while others said that the child in the commercial had passed away immediately after filming this. There are also rumors that the actress Kaiko Matsuzaka had either passed away or even been committed to a psychiatric hospital. Others claim that when the ad came on at night, the singer's voice in the commercial transformed from that of a young soprano to a raspy old woman's. And the ad was so unsettling to the public that Kleenex eventually pulled it off air and replaced it with a completely different one. At our number 1 spot, we have the Kaikoji Temple. This place has nothing really scary about it, except the fact that it has mummified bodies on display. Okay, maybe it's a bit scary. These mummified figures are known as the Shukumbutsu, also known as the living Buddha or Buddha mummies. These are in fact real people, and these are the bodies of the priests who belong to the Shingon sect of Japanese Buddhism. All of these mummies we see are priests who made the drastic decision in self-mummification. And I don't know what it is, but there's something about a body that being fully intact for hundreds of years that makes it so creepy. The process for the mummification would actually be very intense as well, and for the first 1,000 days, and it would go a little something like this. For the first 1,000 days, they would do extreme fasting and exercising. Then on the next 1,000 days, they would reduce their diet to a bare minimum in order to fit in this thing. The last 1,000 days would consist of entombment. Basically, many would bury themselves alive, essentially while in a deep state of meditation in order to reach enlightenment. Starting off at number 10, we have the ever popular Hell's Gate Bridge in Oxford, Alabama. This is no London Bridge, despite the fact that it is falling down, but a more sinister bridge that harbors the characteristics of a living hell. Hell's Gate Bridge got its name because it's said that when you stop on the bridge and glance over your shoulder, the road begins to resemble a fiery gates of hell. And if you're not scared from a mere opinion, in 1950, a young couple's car drove directly off the bridge, killing both of them. And it said if you stop at the bridge with your lights off, a member of the couple enter the vehicle and leave a wet spot on your seats. The bridge has now been cemented off due to its poor condition and to stop those who are too curious for their own liking. At number 9, we have the Alaskan Triangle. Imagine the Bermuda Triangle, but cold and on land, and then we have the Alaska Triangle. This is a piece of untouched wilderness where mystery lingers and the unknown spreads. This triangle connects from Alaska's largest city of Anchorage to Juneau in the southeast and Barrow in the north. Over the past 50 years, over 20,000 people and several planes have gone missing in the area. The mystery of the disappearance is inconclusive, but many of the surrounding indigenous tribes, including the Tling tribe, claim that restless demons and trickster spirits lure people to an icy death. Specifically, there is a shape-shifting demon called the Kushtaka, described to approach those who are lost or weak. And once your trust grows with them, they will drag you deeper into the wilderness and tear you limb for limb, preventing your soul from reincarnating. In other words, this place is not the most ideal backpacking spot. You can't believe what we have at number 8. We have the ghost of Stowe Lake. Situated by the largest body of water that borders the beloved Golden Gate Park in California, a young mother and her baby daughter decided to take a stroll and enjoy the scenery. Eventually, the mother would be distracted while speaking to another lady in the park. Due to this distraction, her baby daughter rolled away and ended up in the lake. Like any mother, she started to panic and jumped in the lake attempting to save her daughter. This was the last time the woman was seen. Now, there are reports of women sobbing when there's no one around. And if that wasn't eerie, some have even reported seeing this woman still looking for her baby in the water. And for a bad idea, you can summon her by saying, white lady, I have your baby," 3 times and she will appear. However, this is not recommended. At number 7, we have Charman. In 1948, in Ojai Valley, located in California, there was a large brush fire which destroyed the majority of the valley along with many homes around the area. This fire's devastation made it impossible for those in the affected area to receive any sort of help, which kick-started this urban legend. During the time of the fire, a man and his son who lived in an isolated cabin in the valley found themselves fighting for their own survival. Their house burned down, the father ended up dying from the fire, and the son acquired several deep burns on their skin. This drove the son completely insane, and with his enraged mindset, he hung his father and skinned all of the burned skin from his body. The son eventually disappeared in the darkness of the woods, and it is said that those who wander carelessly in Ojai Valley will encounter the horribly burned Charman, and he will attempt to tear their skin off, just as he did to his father. Coming in at number 6, we have The Dog Boy. Despite the lighthearted name, its story is truly traumatic. In a small Arkansas town was a child named Gerald Bettis, who was supported by 2 loving parents. However, this love would turn to sour. At a young age, Gerald would kidnap and torture dogs, giving him the name, and eventually would thirst for something more sinister. He would move on to humans, specifically his parents. He ended up torturing his parents by imprisoning them in their own home, keeping them there for years. Eventually, the father would pass away in the home, ending his tortured existence, and it's still believed that this house is still haunted from the spirit of Gerald and his father, with consistent light flickers, moving objects, and cold spots. Taking our number 5 spot, we have the Dark Watchers. The Santa Lucia Mountains, or the Santa Lucia Range, is a rugged mountain range located in the coastal area of Central California. For many years, people have looked up at these tall peaks and spotted tall, cloaked figures looking down at them, and in the blink of an eye, they're gone. These 7 to 15 feet tall mystical entities stand motionless, wearing only a black coat and a broad brim hat. Sightings were reported all the way back from the 1700s when the Spanish had just arrived on the land and noticed these tall, dark watchers on the mountain. Despite these entities not doing any physical harm, they're always watching people in the area, making them feel worried and scared of the feeling of not being alone. Here we have at number 4, the Hugging Molly. In Abbeville, Alabama, there is said to be a phantom-like 7-foot tall woman dressed in all black with a large brim hat. If you ever saw the Woman in Black movie, you could get the idea of what I mean. Legends say she will appear to children, squeeze them tight, and then scream in their ear. Other than this, she's said not to have harmed them. There are also tales of how she hugs some to death. Their intentions to hug is said to be from losing her only daughter and hugging her while she had already passed. Who knew a hug could be so bad? Stealing the number 3 spot, we have the infamous Skinwalker. In Arizona, there is a mythical creature which can shed its own skin, like how a snake sheds. Skinwalkers are humans who possess immense supernatural power, including the power to transform into any animal. According to the legend, these evil beings have the choice to choose any animal they desire, but their most common animal forms are a fox, goat, owl, coyote, cougar, dog, and a wolf. These supernatural beings are said to have started as medicine men who eventually used their powers for evil, turning them to something worse. It is said that powerful skinwalkers have the ability to steal the body of its victims by locking eyes with them. The skinwalker can control that person and become them at will. Once it controls you, it has complete control and has the power to make the victim do things they normally wouldn't do. Skinwalkers are a sign of those who decide to choose evil over good. At our number 2 spot, we have Homie the Clown. In Illinois during the 1990s, there was a clown going by the name of Homie, who would be spotted going through the streets to lure children in his sketchy van. If you ever saw the free candy van meme, this is the unofficial origin story. His name originated from the beloved clown character in the early 90s sketch comedy show named In Living Color, who was an ex-convict who would carry a sock for rebellious children. Except for this clown, children would not get a sock for punishment, but would get something more sinister, more brutal. Eventually, the police would be involved, but would be skeptical about a killer kidnapping clown. Homie the Clown would eventually fizzle out of existence and may still be out there in his van, awaiting unsuspecting children. Finally, at number 1, we have the Riverdale Road. Definitely not the teen drama show Riverdale. There's an 11-mile stretch of road located in Thornton, Colorado, with almost all forms of supernatural reported, from ghostly beings to talking animals to devil worshippers. Just off the road, there's a place called Joggers Hill, where it's said that a car hit a jogger and left him to die, which created a revengeful spirit that is reported to attack any of those who try to enjoy the scenery. On this road, there's also a Camaro that drives around at night with only one headlight on that attempts to race with you. However, this race will be to your death, as this black Camaro is the exact same one in the fatal 1970s car accident that was completely totaled. If this wasn't terrifying enough, the history of this road showed that many slaves were tortured and abused on the farms surrounding the road, and it is said that if you look close enough, you can see the bodies of the hanged slaves in the trees. So next time you take a night ride to relieve your stress, make sure the road you're on is not called Riverdale Road.
At our number 10 spot, we have the Phantom of the Opera. The Phantom of the Opera is a well-known legend that is closely linked to the history of the Opera Garnier in Paris. This legend originated from a fire that occurred in the Salle Palatier, the predecessor of the Opera Garnier, in 1873. A pianist named Ernest was horribly disfigured in the fire and lost his companion as a result. Overcome with grief, he chose to isolate himself from the world and even took refuge in the basement of this place, which was still under construction at the time. Ernest spent the remainder of his life in the shadows of this building and only ate fish from the underground lake of the opera. His sorrowful cries could be heard in the background of performances, as many guests would report. After his disappearance, strange events started to occur in the Opera Garnier. For example, a machinist was found hanged, but when they did investigation, there was no rope to be found. And also, a chandelier fell during one performance, killing a spectator seated in the seat number 13. All these mysterious occurrences were attributed to the Phantom of the Opera, who is believed to still haunt the halls of the famous theater. These mysteries have captured the imaginations of many writers, including Gaston Leroux. He wrote the novel The Phantom of the Opera in 1910, which is a worldwide success and largely based on this legend. Even today, the legend continues to live on, as Lodge number 5 in Opera Garnier is permanently rented by a mysterious stranger. This lodge is strategically located within the theater, allowing its occupant to see the performances but remain unseen. At a number 9 spot, we have the Beast of Gévaudan. The Beast of Gévaudan remains one of the most intriguing and mysterious legends in French history. The terror caused by this man-eating beast or beast lasted for 3 years, from 1764 all the way to 1767. The attacks took place in the Margeride Mountains of south central France and spanned over an area of 90 by 80 kilometers. Eyewitnesses reported that the beast was formidable with sharp teeth and an immense tail. The descriptions of the animal also varied widely, with some saying it was a striped hyena, while others claimed it was like a large wolf, dog, or even a wolf-dog hybrid. Regardless of its actual appearance, the Beast of Gévaudan was known for its brutal methods of attack, which often involved tearing out the throats of his victims. The Kingdom of France took threat to this beast very seriously and even devoted a significant amount of manpower and wealth to hunting this animal down. The resources of several nobles, soldiers, and royal huntsmen, and even civilians were used in the pursuit of this beast. But despite their efforts, the attacks persisted and the number of victims continued to rise. The exact number of victims is not known, but estimates suggest that the beast killed and injured hundreds of people. Although the beast was reported killed several times, the attacks did not stop until 1767. To this day, the identity of the Beast of Gévaudan remains a mystery, and its legends continue to captivate people's imaginations, and if there was really a man-eating beast in France during this time. At a number 8 spot, we have the father of cinematography. Louis Le Prince is a name that should ring a bell to all those into cinema, as he is widely regarded as the true father of cinematography. However, despite his monumental contribution to the world of motion pictures, his name is often overshadowed by figures like Thomas Edison and the Lumiere brothers. The reason for this is that Le Prince disappeared before he could showcase his groundbreaking invention to the world. In 1888, Le Prince shot the first film in history in Leeds, England. However, instead of rushing to show the world what he created, he chose to be patient and refine his invention. After 2 years of careful tweaking, he was finally ready to present his work to the public. Then in September 1890, he boarded a train to Paris with all the materials and patents he needed for the showcase. But unfortunately, he never made it to the French capital. His friends were waiting in Paris to pick him up, but they found no trace of him. This mystery sparked many rumors and theories about what could have happened to Le Prince. Some people said that his brother Albert killed him over their inheritance, while others believed that he drowned himself or just decided to fled to start a new life. But the most tantalizing theory was that Thomas Edison himself was behind Le Prince's disappearance, as he wanted to ensure his monopoly over the invention of cinema. Despite the many theories surrounding his disappearance, one thing is for certain: Louis Le Prince left a lasting impact on the world of motion pictures and will forever be known, at least for me, as a visionary inventor. All the way at a number 7 spot, we have the murdered monks. The Abbaye de Mortemer is a 12th century monastery located in Normandy, France, and it is considered by many to be one of the most haunted places in the country as well. The story of Mortemer Abbey begins with the Cistercian monks who built the monastery on marshy land that was referred to as the Dead Pond, a name that would eventually become the moniker for the abbey itself. Despite the monastery's size and grandeur, it was often plagued by financial difficulties, which ultimately led to its downfall. By the time of the French Revolution, the abbey was in a state of disrepair, but a small community of monks still lived within its walls. However, their presence was not enough to save them from the wrath of the revolutionaries, who decided to storm the abbey in 1790, killing 4 monks who lived there and leaving a scene of blood and chaos behind. Since then, the abbey has been the site of numerous ghostly sightings, with rumors of ghostly monks haunting the ruins. Fortunately, there has even been accounts of a benevolent ghost there, dressed in the robes of a monk, appearing during World War II and even saving an English paratrooper from an enemy attack. And if you decide to visit, there's a higher chance you'll probably encounter one of the more angered spirits of the 4 murdered monks, but let's just hope you encounter this one. Number 6, the Mont Saint-Michel. The Mont Saint-Michel, a settlement located on the border of Brittany and Normandy, is a place of both beauty and terror. This majestic fortress built on an island is surrounded by the sea, which makes it a popular tourist destination, but this fairy tale-like location still has a dark and haunting side to it. According to the legend, the island was discovered when Saint Albert received a dream from Archangel Michael, directing him to build a monastery there. Despite initially disregarding the vision, the Archangel burned a hole in the bishop's head to reinforce the message, and the monastery was built. The island has been a place of worship and pilgrimage for centuries and has been the subject of many myths and ghost stories over the years as well. The island is known for their Battle of Mont Saint-Michel, one of the bloodiest days in French history. It is said that the wails of English soldiers who lost their lives during the war can still be heard on calm days with low tides. Many people believe that the souls of these soldiers are unable to rest and continue to haunt the island, never moving to the afterlife. Before the French Revolution, the island was inhabited by monks and other pious people who decided to bury their dead in the walls of the church. When the revolution reached Mont Saint-Michel, the monks were forced to abandon the island and the abbey was then turned into a prison. Some say that the ghosts of the dead monks who were disturbed by the desecration of their once sacred location still roam the island as well. And the humper list, we have the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme. As you already know, nursery rhymes' origins aren't as charming as their true story. One of these is the Jack and Jill nursery rhyme. It has two popular interpretations. One is tied to the French Revolution, and the other one is tied to King Charles I of England. In the first interpretation, Jack represents King Louis XVI of France, and Jill represents Queen Mary Antoinette. The rhyme tells the story of their execution during the Reign of Terror in 1793. But in the second interpretation, the rhyme revolves around King Charles I's attempt to increase taxes on liquid measures. The standard volume of Jack was reduced and the tax remained the same. A gill, which was twice the volume of a Jack, was also reduced as a result. The volume mark on the standard Jack measure was indicated with a crown, and the reduction of the volume caused the crown mark to fall, leading to the lyrics, Jack fell down and broke his crown.
Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown and Jill came tumbling after.
Number 4, the worst barber ever. Travel back in time to medieval Paris and the Ile de la Cite, when a barber was known to frequently receive foreign students who were housed by neighboring cantons. Unfortunately, some of these young students would then vanish without a trace. In those days of widespread poverty and frequent attacks, it was believed that these students were victims of a violent crime, and with no family left in Paris to inquire about their disappearance, their fate was left to speculation. However, one day, an unusual incident changed the course of events. A dog was barking loudly in front of a barber's door for several days, and its master, a German student, had not returned from his appointment. The police were then called in to investigate and made a shocking discovery. The barber was cutting the throats of his young clients, then disposing of their bodies through a trap door in the cellar of the pastry chef next door. It was said that the pastry chef used the bodies to make some of the best pies in all of Paris. The barber and pastry chef paid the price for their crimes, and they were burned alive in a public square. Their houses were razed to the ground, and today the former site of the bakery is used as a garage for the Paris police. Number 3, the haunted lighthouse at Tevennec. Despite its picturesque location on the coast, the Tevennec lighthouse was notorious for the tales of madness and death that surrounded the 23 lighthouse operators who lived and worked there before it was automated in 1910. The area around the lighthouse has a rich maritime history and was known for their frequent shipwrecks that occurred there, including the crash of the French ship Sedusant during the Napoleonic Wars, which led to the death of hundreds of sailors. According to local legends, the area is also haunted by the spirits of the Celtic seafarers and warriors, who has been said to haunt the lighthouse since its inception. The tales of madness that befell the lighthouse operators are particularly eerie. The first operator, Henry Guzenik, was reportedly driven to madness by ghostly voices that spoke to him in the Breton language and told him to leave the lighthouse every single day. One of these successors are said to have had a similar experiences, leading the French government to make Tevennec a two-man lighthouse and even recruited married couples to work there. However, few couples were willing to live and work at this lighthouse, for obvious reasons, and those that did suffered untimely and tragic deaths, including a family with 3 children and a cow.
But it's not relevant, is it?
The story surrounding the Tevennec Lighthouse is filled with the tales of failed exorcisms, crucifixes installed to ward off evil spirits, and even a violent storm that arrived just as one of the operators were giving birth inside of the lighthouse. So definitely one of the places in France that you don't want to visit. Number 2, the encounter of Marius de Wilde. The French commune of Quaraubo made headlines in September 10, 1954, when a local railway worker named Marius de Wilde claimed to have been visited by extraterrestrials. According to the reports, de Wilde claimed that a cigar-shaped UFO landed near his garden, and 2 small creatures in spacesuits resembling dive costumes emerged. The UFO shot a beam of light that paralyzed de Wilde, and by the time he was recovered, the aliens are already getting ready to leave. Despite an investigation by the authorities that found unusual marks on the railway tracks, there was no concrete evidence of an alien encounter. The stories of de Wilde's experience with the extraterrestrials quickly was widespread and reached the wine-producing village of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, located hundreds of miles from Quaraubo. The local mayor and town council were keen to protect their citizens and vineyards from potential alien invaders, and as a result, they passed a municipal decree that banned all UFOs from landing, taking off, or flying over the community. Which is definitely strange, but I guess the UFOs listened, because ever since they made this decree, they haven't seen one since. Number 1, the ghost of Pont-Marie. The City of Love is also the city of spine-chilling ghost stories, one of which stems from the era of France during World War II. This period saw the division of France into two parts, one directly occupied by the Germans and the other being a puppet state by them. However, amidst the hardship and turmoil, a brave woman rose to the occasion and joined the French resistance. This Parisian lady was married to a resistance fighter and was tasked with collecting information from an SS officer, with whom she started an affair. One fateful winter night, she was scheduled to meet her husband on Pont-Marie Bridge, which spans across the River Seine, but he ended up never arriving. Understanding that something was amiss, the woman wept, waiting through the night until she eventually froze to death. Ever since, reports have surfaced of her ghost appearing on cold nights on this bridge, still crying and waiting for her husband to show up.
In our list right, at number 10 we have mysterious origins. I think it's best to introduce this doll by sharing its disturbing origins. According to legend, in the early 1900s, a wealthy American family known as the Ottos committed an unspeakable offense against their young maid from the Bahamas. In an act of retaliation, the maid gifted the young Otto boy Eugene a dog named Robert who had been cursed by a voodoo priestess. In the following years, Eugene would be uncomfortably close to the doll. He would speak to it as if it was a real person and would become violently angry with anyone who just looked at it without his permission. Looking without permission meant that they were being disrespectful to Robert. And on top of that, most of the Otto family friends stopped visiting, claiming to have seen the doll move by itself or having heard it giggle and laugh in the dead of night. The family had enough and decided to send the doll to a museum where many people believe that visiting the doll is a reason for their personal tragedies. And it's to be noted that you should not view it without his permission or take any photos, or else misfortune will find you. At our number 9 spot, we have It's the Same Company that invented the teddy bear. As mentioned before, he was a handmade doll, but many don't know that Robert was built in the same company that created the first ever teddy bear, showing that evil and good can exist in the same place. But this kind of makes me think of teddy bears differently, especially when the company that made the teddy bear was also one who made one of the most cursed objects in the world. The company's name is Steve Company, which was located in Germany. They created the teddy bear in honor of Theodore Roosevelt, but for Robert, they didn't intend to release him at all, and said he was a part of a window display of clown and gestures. Well, I guess the joke's on us. Stealing our number 8 spot, we have Robert is possessed. So it's widely believed that the doll is in fact possessed. They place the blame on the person who originally gave the doll to Eugene Otto, which was the servant who worked for the family. It's reported that she was abused and mistreated by the family, which led her to cursing the doll using voodoo and black magic. The doll would consume Eugene and would often be caught talking and painting with the doll until his death in 1974. The doll seemed to be possessed before his death, but after, it only got worse. And that's where we'll get onto our next point. Onto our next point, at number 7, we have Myrtle Reuter. When Eugene Otto died in 1974, his doll and the house were the only things that he left behind. So eventually the artist's house was purchased by Myrtle Reuter, who was also granted the task to take care of Robert the doll. In addition to sourceless footsteps and giggling, Reuter and her visitors reported seeing Robert's facial expressions change whenever his owner Gene was mentioned. They also swore he had the ability to move between different rooms of the house without any help. And her 10-year-old daughter would find Robert in the attic where she claimed he was alive and trying to hurt her. After 20 years, she had enough and finally decided to donate Robert to the Fort East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, where he still resides today. On to our next point, at number 6, we have Fort East Martello Museum. Now the doll haunts a small museum in Key West, Florida. It now haunts the entire building, and it's said that school children walking by outside report seeing Robert move from window to window. Staff at the museum claim that Robert has been found in different positions within his case. That footsteps have been heard around the museum at night with no apparent explanation for the noise, and that Robert's expression has been known to change from neutral to nasty in a blink of an eye. Visitors in the museum take precaution before meeting Robert. It's said that you need to speak to him in a polite way. You need to ask his permission to photograph him and to treat him with the most utmost respect. The walls around him are littered with apologies from guests for their behavior. That's literally how much people fear his ability to curse others. This is because many visitors who don't respect Robert claim they face dreadful misfortune, such as getting into accidents, losing relationship, illnesses and disease. So these apologies are actually for good reason. Right in the hump of our list, we have Don't Get Robert Mad. Now that we mentioned that he's currently in the Fort East Martello Museum, I think it's best to know that his terror didn't stop there. It only continued at a grander scale. One Reddit user named Dun Myth was with his wife and son when they decided to take a trip to Key West. They had heard about Robert in the past, so just because they were passing through, it just made sense to take a visit. The man's wife was superstitious and was very nervous when approaching Robert. On the other hand, the man was not nice about it and decided to tease her about it, which in hindsight, he knew that he pissed Robert off. Once they finished, and as they were leaving, they noticed that their car wouldn't start. It's also good to mention that this car was a luxury car, bought new, and was less than a year old. But when the mechanic came, the battery connectors just crumbled because they were that corroded. The mechanic claimed he had never seen anything that bad. This led the husband to walk back to the museum to apologize to Robert. I know, creepy stuff. All the way at our number 4 spot, we have Robert moving his foot. A lot of people decide to record Robert as they visit the museum. Many don't really record anything supernatural, and besides, they are usually stressed because of the conditions needed to visit Robert. As mentioned already, you need to ask permission to take pictures or videos or even talk to the doll. If not, people claim bad luck and negativity in their lives. So here's a video of someone showing Robert the doll. Although it's unconfirmed if they ask for permission, it's super eerie the way Robert just moves. Right at our number 3 spot, we have Robert inflicts pain. Just one more museum encounter for our list, I promise. Reddit user Taiji Lu talked about his tragic encounter with Robert the doll. He was super excited to see the doll. A kid in the candy shop is how he described it. He reported feeling heavy the moment he was in the same room as Robert, and he even claimed to see apparitions in the corner of his eyes. The user took a photo of Robert, and once he started to tell the story to one of his friends, the atmosphere changed and he felt sick to the stomach. As they rode back home on their bikes, the kid would fall off and dislocate his knee, and to this day, he would still blame it on Robert the doll. We're almost done, and at our number 2 spot, we have Ozzy Osbourne. I know it's a bit random, but I wasn't surprised that Ozzy Osbourne had a connection to this cursed doll. Just in case you've been living under a rock, Ozzy Osbourne took over the 70s with his heavy metal vocals and personality. In this series, Ozzy and Jack's World Detour, they decided to pay a visit to the doll. During the visit, Ozzy and his son did apologize and ask for permission, but the doll just didn't seem fazed.
Do you believe in that voodoo? I think that's some weird superstition.
After this occasion, Ozzy had a terrible 2019. He took many serious falls, causing many major bruises and cuts. He underwent neck surgery, he got an infection in his hand, and was hospitalized for a flu. He blamed all of this on the cursed doll.
Sorry, Robert.
Sorry, pardon.
So if Ozzy Osbourne speaks, we listen. At our number 1 spot of our list, we have an inspiration from Chucky. One of the most influential horror films of all time is 1980's Child's Play. This starred the infamous killer doll Chucky. Even though he isn't a real person, he is based on a real figure. And you guessed it, it's Robert the doll. These stories have very many similarities. Like Robert, Chucky was a gift to a little boy who at first saw Chucky as his best friend and primary companion. Chucky's tale also parallels Robert's because they are both living dolls who cause chaos wherever they go. Both these dolls are just entities of mischievous deeds.